world, anybody with a beard was Jewish. Okay. I said, I want yours. And she was very clever. She bought me the chicken coop car. Remember the chicken coop car? It lit up and it did have sliding doors. So much for that. Well, I thought I would talk about Hanukkah, frankly, because I did a pretty fair job, I think, on the Torah portion in the bulletin, which is somewhere. Okay. So I thought I'd tell you, all right, the Hanukkah story. This is what I call Hanukkah for grown-ups. Why does the holiday last for 8 days?
Because the oil burned for 8 days.
Yeah, that's what Barton's Candy has been telling American Jews for decades.
That's what
Well, it's not really true. The truth is this. The rabbis in the Talmud are having a discussion, and you have to be aware that in the Talmud, it's more in process. James Joyce would have a lot of fun with the Talmud, okay? Because if you follow it, it really doesn't make any sense. And they're having a conversation. I'm sorry, what?
That's James Joyce.
James Joyce was very Jewish. No, he wasn't. He was a good Catholic. Okay. Anyway, what happens is that they're having a conversation, the rabbis in the Talmud, about what you're allowed to use to make Shabbat candles, because back in those days you didn't get your candles. See, we used to get them from Israel. Now we're getting them from China. I'm wondering about that. The Israeli ones seem to burn better, but you had to make them yourself. You actually had to do the dipping like you did in Williamsburg, Virginia, and all that business. And they're saying, can you use tallow? Can you use paraffin? Can you use wax? And so on and so forth. And in the middle of this very ordinary conversation about making your own candles, one of the rabbis says, my Chanukah, which means, what is Hanukkah? And the other rabbis don't even say to him, you know, you're getting off topic, because rabbis have been going off on tangents for millennia. Instead, they say, the reason we celebrate Hanukkah for 8 days and nights is because the oil lasted for 8 days and nights. It was miraculous. And then they go back to the Shabbat candles. And that's where the oil story comes from. The truth, if you want to call it that, is a little bit different, because if you look in the books of the Apocrypha are the books that never quite made it into the Hebrew Bible. When the Bible is canonized, what are we talking? 2nd century, 5th century? I think 5th century.
Yeah, depending which books.
Yeah, 5th century, okay? This is where the rabbis get together and decide which books are matame et hayadayim. In effect, they make your hands unclean. It's a very strange expression, okay? But which books should be in, which books should be out? Well, we all know the books that are in. Deuteronomy, Chronicles, Samuel 1 and 2, and so on and so forth. But there's some others which are really fascinating, and people, I've never had a course on them. I'd love to do a course. I'm sure that Dr. Lichtenstein could do a wonderful course. But you have the 1st and 2nd books of Maccabees. Nobody knows about these books. And in the books of Maccabees, it gives the entire story with Mattathias and the 5 sons. Wait, I've got the 5 sons down. This is not an order of birth. Judah was not the eldest. Shimon, Simon, was the eldest. And how do I know that from the Apocrypha? No, I know that from Howard Fast, All My Glorious Brothers. Anybody read that? That was a big hit back in the late 50s, early 60s. Fast was a wonderful novelist. He was totally non-religious. He was a communist. Okay, remember when all the Jewish intellectuals were communists or something like that? Okay, well, okay, so you've got the 5 sons. You've got Shimon, Eliezer, Yonatan, Yochanan, and Yehuda. Okay, all the 5 sons. And it describes how the traitor Jew came to Modin and he tried to get the Jews to eat pork. But Mattathias took his knife and stabbed the traitor to the heart and said, waving, I don't think he does this in the Apocrypha, but it surely sounds good. He waves the bloody knife over his head. Guy is 80, 82, something like that. He was really in good shape. He worked out, he ate fiber, he took his vitamins, he went to see the doctor as frequently as possible, and he waves the bloody knife over his head, and he goes, Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, which means, who is like you, O Lord, among the mighty. Also, Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mem kaf bet yud spells Maccabee. That's where the Maccabees get their name. They say Judah Maccabee was called that, or Judas Maccabeus. I think that's Georg Friedrich Handel who wrote about that. But it means a hammer. No, it doesn't. Patish is modern Hebrew for hammer. Is Maccabee a hammer? It's not a hammer. It's just because he hammered at his enemies. Well, if he hammered at his enemies, he used a different tool. He must have gone to Lowe's or something. Well, anyway, it describes the battle. And the battle is as follows. First off, these are not Greeks from Greece. These are Greeks from Syria. That doesn't make any particular difference. I could go back. I could tell you about Alexander the Great. Oh, I should throw in a little bit about Alexander the Great. Let's go back. The Hanukkah story is 168 BCE. The Alexander the Great sequence is 300.
333.
Oh, I'm off by 33 years. 333 years because Alexander liked alliteration. And his father, Philip the Macedonian, they conquer the entire known world. They go all the way to India. Now, Philip dies. Alexander takes over. He's not a very tall guy. Now, I know we've had an issue throughout history with short guys making big noises. But Alexander does conquer the entire world, but then he comes to the Middle East. He comes to Israel. Now, this is a midrash. This is a legend. I don't know if you're going to see this anywhere. And he has a dream that an old man with a long white beard tells him, "Feareth not, Alexander, for you will go on to conquer the entire known world until India." And Alexander wakes up and says, "Wow." And he saddles his horse. His horse is not Bucephalus. That's somebody else's horse. And they're on their way. And the Jews, in the meantime, are scared to death because these Greeks are fairly efficient in terms of war. They've got the phalanx, that sort of thing. And what they decide is we're going to surrender gracefully. So a small delegation of big shot Jews goes walking out to meet the mighty conqueror. And among them is the high priest. And before all of his troops, the great Alexander, or Alexander the Great, gets off his horse and goes down on one knee before the high priest. And his troops are aghast. "Your Majesty," they say, "you don't even know this guy." But they say it in Greek, so it sounds more impressive. And he says, "But this is the man from my dream. He has a long white beard." So he and the high priest become pretty chummy. And Alexander says, "Now that I am your monarch and liege lord, I expect you to build a statue for me in front of that building over there, which you keep calling the Holy Temple." And what do you think the high priest says? "No, your Majesty, no can do, because it's a graven image, and we Jews are not very big on graven images. But, says the high priest, I'll do you a solid in another way. All the boy babies born this year will be named Alexander in your honor, and all the girl babies will be named Alexandra." Now, I don't know what that did to the preschool when the teacher went out and said, "Alexander, Alexandra," and you got 800 different kids. But that's the story. Alexander goes on. There's a story. He goes to a big banquet. Somebody thinks he's poisoned. He's not poisoned. He gets malaria. There's even, I saw a golden medal with his face on it. Not the profile, the whole face. And he doesn't look well, as my father used to say. He's not a well man. Well, Alexander dies, and the kingdom that he slapped together so quickly, twice as quickly, falls apart. You've got two generals. One of them is Ptolemy, and the other one is Seleucus, which in Hebrew is Seleucus. It was always very easy to remember for the final because any person named Silly is going to be on the final. Okay, Seleucus, the Seleucids, they take the northern part of Israel, and Ptolemy takes Egypt, okay? And that's what happens is that the Seleucids come in, and Antiochus Epiphanes, which means half god, Antiochus, comes into Jerusalem and becomes the king, and he says, all the Jews will worship me. But there's nothing unusual about that. In the Middle East, if you're the king, you're half god. Now, his enemies did call him Epiphanes, which means half maniac. But really, mentally, there was nothing wrong with him, honestly. He just wanted to command a little respect. Are the Jews going to worship this guy? No. And there's a story that he ran a flock of pigs through the temple. I don't know if he did that or not. But, okay, back to the war. So, Mattathias and the 5 sons run off into the hills, followed by all the able-bodied people and some not-so-able-bodied people. And now, this is the thing. The phalanx, do we know about the phalanx? We should do this from the temple. This would be a great project. everybody gets a spear that goes from here to that wall. And then we all stand shoulder to shoulder. And then we attack our enemy, and the idea is to poke them before they can poke you. Later on, the Romans defeat the phalanx by attacking from the side. Apparently, the Greeks never thought about that. They were too busy going forward. Come on, forward! Uh-oh, here come the Romans. Okay. So, the thing is, if you're fighting in the hills, is a phalanx going to help you? No, you can't keep your boys straight line and all that. And because the Jews know the lay of the land, while the Greeks are marching by below, the Jews can bounce a few rocks off their heads. But they never, once or twice, they do take on the Greeks in open combat, because the Greeks bring in their secret weapon, elephants. Okay, you know you can never have too many elephants, all right? And they ride the elephants into combat, and this is a small variety of elephant. This is not a Ringling Brothers elephant. This is a junior league elephant, because they couldn't get it into the ship. No, I'm saying. Probably walked it all the way from India. Well, you know the difference between Indian and African elephants, Roz?
That much of a difference?
Well, the African ones have bigger ears. Okay?
Bigger everything.
Excuse me? Yes, the elephant comparison. Okay. Well, how do you think the Jews react when they see elephants for the first time?
Wow.
Well, yes, and after that, because we're at war.
They're not kosher.
No, we're not eating them. We're at war, okay? Jews here, elephants there.
We want them.
Yes, they would. That would be a nice thing. But they don't know what they are. They think they're monsters. So Eliezer Maccabee, I don't know the order of birth, grabs a spear and waves it and says, gentlemen, or my friends, or comrades, I don't know, something appropriately warlike. These creatures are made of flesh and blood, the same as you or me. And before everybody's sight, he rolls under the lead elephant, stabs the beast in the belly with the spear, and the elephant falls on him and squish. But because of Eliezer's showing them, they go on to defeat the Greeks. Now, there's the problem.
I don't get that one.
Oh, you stick the elephant.
I got that.
I've done research on this, and if you stick an elephant in the belly button with a long stick, that they won the battle. Everybody rolled under the elephant and stuck it in the belly button.
Roll down.
That's also how you kill yourself.
Right.
Okay? Now, back to the first and second books of the Maccabees. They never made it into the Tanakh because the rabbis of the Talmud did not like the Maccabees, no way, no how. Because after they defeated, and whether or not the oil thing takes place, who becomes the king? The Maccabees, the Hasmoneans. That was their priestly dynasty. And they made some serious errors by doing so. And they were all Kohanim, they were all priests. Is a priest allowed to become king?
Yeah.
The Greeks, just as we asked the French to help us in the revolution. The Romans. The Greeks are on the way down. The Romans are the up-and-coming world power. And after the Romans succeed and help our ancestors in fighting the Greeks, the war is over. The Jews say, okay, Romans, thank you for helping us. Have a nice day. And the Romans say, hey, nice country. We're staying. And this is actually the days of the Respublica Romana, which is the Roman Republic. Later on, when the emperors take over, starting with Julius Caesar, things get really hairy. Okay, so why did they not include the first and second books in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible? Because the books say nice things about the Romans. Because the books are very pro-Roman. That was the author, and it tells the same story in both books. It tells the Hanukkah story in both books. And that's really the true story of Hanukkah. Okay, let's see. I think I kind of covered it all.
To do with the burning oil.
That's from the Talmud. That's Talmudic. That has nothing to do with... in Hebrew, they're called the Sfarim HaChitzoniim, the outside books, the books that never made it into the canon, C-A-N-O-N. One thing has nothing to do with the other. It's like eating chopsticks in an Indian restaurant.
So that legend is, forget it.
No, it's up to you. Something happened. I always say something must have happened, whether it's splitting the Red Sea, the giving of the Torah, something happened. Okay?
So why do we celebrate?
Oh, we're here. Because you see, okay, here's the Christmas connection. There really is no Christmas connection, but I thought of this a few years ago. Okay? What's the difference between Hanukkah and Purim? Both involved a bad guy who wanted to destroy us. Yes, Haman wanted to destroy whom? The Jewish people. The Greeks wanted to destroy Jewish culture. They wanted to destroy Judaism. They wanted everybody to go Hellenistic. Hellenistic is the way to go. The men would wrestle naked, and we don't have to talk about that. We're in mixed company. Okay. So, yes, question.
Why do they call the games that the kids play the Maccabees instead of the Maccabees
Who says Maccabees?
My niece and nephew, that's what they call them.
Well, it's Maccabee. It's Maccabee. 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 Yes. Memkov Bet Yud.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, okay. Now just imagine. If the Hellenistic Jews, Greeks, whomever you characterize as the Hanukkah enemy, if they had won, Judaism would have vanished. And now we're talking 168 BCE. Now, years later, decades, millennia later, in 4 BCE, when when Jesus is born, he wouldn't have been a Jew. He would have been a Greek. And maybe Christianity, as we know it, would never have gotten started. So even though we say it's a minor, extra-biblical, post-biblical holiday, nonetheless, we owe the Maccabees a debt of gratitude. Oh, very quickly. Yes, they did make themselves king, but they kept Israel independent for 100 years between the pass and fell of Rome and Greece and all those people. Okay, so I like Hanukkah. I really do like Hanukkah. It's really nice. Okay. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos. We're going to light candles now. Okay, Ronnie, would you like to light candles? Okay. All the ladies move in this direction.
Looks like you could use a good meal. You think?
Okay, we wave our hands over the candles, we bring in Shabbat, and we say the blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu v'tzoranu, lahadlik ner shoshana. Amen. Asher kiddushanu v'mitzvosav, v'mitzvosav. Vitzivanu lahadlik ner. Vitzivanu lahadlik ner. Vitzivanu lahadlik ner. Shel Shabbat. Amen. Turn to the person next to you.
Good Shabbos again.
Good Shabbos, Augie. Good question. Always good question.
That's the only way to get
Good Shabbos.
Tomorrow we'll have
Yeah, it was really nice. Good Shabbos.
Okay. Nice to see you.
Yes, same here. Good Shabbos. Okay.
Life is good. Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos must be. I didn't get my homework.
How does it feel to be old enough to pray? 21. You're not 21 yet?
Good shot.
Mikrat Shabbat Hamaleka Inei Yoredet Agdosha Brocha. Page 13, bottom of the page. Ve'imam Malachim Shalom Ubenocha. Oi, Amaleka. Oi, Akana. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Shalom. That particular poem is by Chaim Nachman Bialik. I am not an expert on his poetry. I will say he's a very early Hebrew poet. We're talking probably early 19th century. And he translated Lord Byron into Hebrew, which is fascinating. He was Orthodox as well. And he grew up in poverty. His mother was a widow. And the story he told was that he would watch his mother when she was rolling out the dough to bake the Shabbos challah. And she was crying because of her difficult lot. And the tears would roll down her cheeks and into the challah dough. And on Friday night, when they ate the challah, he says the sorrow, the grief went right into his bones.
And the salt.
What salt?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay. And some people dip their bread in salt.
Okay, page 14,
Yes.
Yedin Nefesh. Yedin Nefesh, Avarachaman, Meshol Chavdach, Eretzonach, Yarotz Avdach, Roayan, Yishtach Kamer, El Moranach, Yeravgo, Yeludotach, Minov Chetzuf, Bechol Taham, Yadarai Lai Lai Lai, Yadarai Lai Lai Lai, Yadarai Lai 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 Lai, Yadarai Lai Lai Lai, Yadarai Lai Lai Lai, Yadarai Lai 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 Lai, Yadarai Lai 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 Lai, Yadarai Lai Lai Lai, Yadarai Lai 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 Lai, Yadarai Lai Lai Lai, Yadarai Lai Lai Lai, Yadarai Lai 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 Lai. Okay, do you want to give it a shot? We've done the top paragraph on 14. That is the first stanza. We've done it to the same tune. So may loving God, compassion, gentle source, take my disposition and shape it to your will. Like a darling deer, will I rush to you before your glorious presence. Humbly will I bow.
21 is the Lachadodi.
Le'echadno dini krakala, b'nei Shabbat nekavela. Le'echadno dini krakala, b'nei Shabbat nekavela. Shamor v'sachor v'dibur echad, ishmiya u'era meyukad, Adonai echad, Shemo echad, L'Shem u'letiferet v'nidila. Shabbat lechulecha, ki lekol bracha, Rosh Mikeret Lesucha, Sofa Segem Shabbat Chila. Lecha lecha odin, lecha odin likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat lekavela, lecha odin likrat kala.
Please rise, page 22, fourth stanza. We face the door, which the Sabbath queen will enter.
Ohi v'shalom ha'ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzola, tochem u'le'arsen gulach, olichala, olichala. Likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekavela. Dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekavela.
Please be seated. All right, 23. This is the psalm for the Sabbath day.
Mizmor shir leyom HaShabbat, Tov leodod laDonai, ולסמר לשמך עליון, ולסמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות. עלי עשור וערנה ולעלי היגיון וכינון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולסמר לשמך עליון, ולסמר לשמך עליון.
Reading silently to the bottom of the page.
צדיקתה הבא יפרח, כרס בלבנון, אש קשת הולדת, בבית אדוני.
let's see.
And it's 2 circles and half, right? 2 circles.
Please rise.
Like that.
Bow towards the ark.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בדברו מרי ורבים בחוכמה פותח שערים, ובתבונה משנה עתים ומחלים את הזמנים ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמורותיהם ברקיע כי רצונו, בורא יום בלילה גולל אור מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור. ומעביר יום ומבין לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה. אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, אמרי ורבי.
Well, I am looking desperately for oh yes, I found it. 386. 386. Yes. We have a Hanukkah reading. Okay. The other thing to remember about Hanukkah is most important reason for the holiday. It is the darkest time of the year, and as we all know, it is better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. Well, let's read responsively on 386. God, you create day and night, rolling away light before darkness, darkness before light. Together.
Thank you for the darkness. Without it, we could not appreciate the light.
By the darkness we can measure blessing, health by sickness, laughter by tears, riches by poverty, freedom by oppression.
In the darkness of the night, the magnetes lit a flame, which still illuminates our lives. Thank you for giving them the courage to resist.
In centuries of night, Jews defied the darkness and lit flames, and by those slender lights from torn and tear-soaked prayer books, they pleaded for your mercy and asked an end to exile's night.
Thank you for the answer to their prayers and for restoring Israel's light.
But still night reigns in all the world. In the darkness, teach us to light candles.
Teach us to light candles, even as we do each night, in memory of ancient light after darkness.
The candle is small, not far from where it brightly flames, the darkness closes in.
The candles light other candles, and light draws strength from light.
Each night of life, let us add candles.
The candle of hope,
The candle of faith.
the candle of great deeds.
The candle of freedom.
We thank you for the darkness, even as we thank you for the light.
Light. Amen. All right, we'll continue. Page 30, I think, Cantor. All right, 29.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל, אהבת
כולם לצלול חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. הגן אדוני אלוהינו, ושוכנו ומקומנו, נשיח בחוקך. ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמידותיך
תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
All right, 30, the Shema. Cover the eyes. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Cover the eyes. Shem Kevod, Malchuso, Li'olam Va'ed. Reading together the English paragraph. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words which I command you this day you shall take to heart. Teach them diligently to your children, and recite them at home and away, night and day. Bind them as a sign upon your hand, and as a reminder above your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your homes and on your gates.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Adonai Elohechem Emet.
Well, 32, as you can see in the heavy font, this is the time of year when we sing the Milchamocha, we don't think necessarily of the splitting of the Red Sea and the Israelites marching through. Rather, it becomes, as I said before, the acronym for the Maccabees. Mem, Kaf, Bet, Yud, Maccabi.
Pi kamocha v'elim Adonai, pi kamocha ne'arva kodesh, norat tziyot, osei fel. Malchutecha rava mokeyam livnei Moshe, zeri anu ve'amro. יהלום יד כזה רק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
All right, as we customarily do on page 33 of the top left-hand paragraph, we go around and think about the folks we know in need of healing, mental, physical, spiritual. We'll mention their names and say Refuah Shalema, quick and speedy recovery. I'm thinking about my sister-in-law, Yocheved Masha, Bat Avram Simcha Baruch, the Leah, and other members of the congregation, Malcolm Black, Herb Smith, Adele Greenblatt. Okay.
I know, I
Yes.
said it before.
Names? Oh, thank God, okay. Refuah Shalema.
Not as dumb as I look.
Refuah Shalema. Okay, yes. Refuah Shalema. Yes.
Martin Baker.
Refuah Shalema.
And just heard something about Joe Albert.
What's wrong with Joe Albert?
He said there's some kind of problem there.
Okay, Refuah Shalema. Okay. All right, yes. Moving along, yes. No? Okay, yes. Anybody else? Okay, yes. We're getting there, yes. Go ahead, go ahead. Refuah Shalema. Refuah Shalema. Okay, Rita?
Rebecca Weinstein.
Refuah Shalema.
Maureen Price.
Refuah Shalema. Yes.
Marie
Refuah Shalema. Yes. Refuah Shalema. Okay.
James Basmajian and Inez Pasher.
Refuah Shalema. Thank you.
She's in the hospital.
Refuah Shalema.
She's getting a pacemaker.
My sister Amy Rose.
Refuah Shalema. All right, let's read the top left-hand paragraph on 33. Help us, Adonai, to lie down in peace, and awaken us again, our sovereign, to life. Spread over us your shelter of peace. Guide us with your good counsel. Save us because of your mercy. Shield us from enemies and pestilence, from starvation, sword, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, O God, who watches over us and delivers us, our gracious and merciful ruler. Guard our coming and our going. Grant us life and peace, now and always. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Praise to you, Adonai, who spreads the shelter of peace over us, over all his people Israel, over Jerusalem and the entire world.
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורש סוכת שלום, עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל, ועל ירושלים.
34.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ואני אומר מלך ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת בנפש, שבת בנפש, שבת בנפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Please rise for the half Kaddish, bottom of 34.
יתגדל ויתקדש שם רבם, ועל מה דיברה חילותי וימליך מלכותי, וחייכון יום וחיי ישראל בעלה ובזמן קריב. וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה על שמי קודשם ולהבין כל ברכתה ושירתה.
The standing silent prayer beginning on 35b and concluding on page 38. Do not do the prayer for Hanukkah. It's not Hanukkah yet, not till Sunday night. Okay? And when you're finished, you may be seated.
Yana תפתח. יררי רי 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 ופי יגיד תהילתך. יררי רי 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 אדוני. יררי רי 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 שפתי תפתח. יררי רי 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 ופי יגיד תהילתך.
Oh yeah. Speed reading. Speed reading.
Shalom Nimroma Uyase Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Shalom Nimroma Uyase Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen Yase Shalom Yase Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Yase Shalom Yase Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Yase Shalom Yase Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Yase Shalom Yase Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Yase Shalom Yase Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Ha'olam Ve'imru Amen.
Page 49 is the Kiddush, and then we'll ask the Kiddush Macharot to give out the liquid refreshment. And while they're giving it out, the Cantor can do the full cut.
In Gandal Vegit Kadash Merava Ve'armar Dibra Chirote Ve'yamlich Malchote וחיי קומנו ליום מחור, וחיי לכל בית ישראל, פגרה ובסברכרי, ואמרו, יש רבה ומבורך, לעולם ולעולם בים, יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי קודשה לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונקבתה למילה בעלמה תושבחתה ונקבתה למילה בעלמה ואמרו תתקמל צלעתו ועבדו לכל ישראל קדם עוון דמשמיא קדם עוון דמשמיא ואמרו אמן. יש להם הרמב"ם שמעיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום ממרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Right, please rise, 49, Kiddush.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם מורה פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו בשבת קודשו ואהבה ורצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה בראשית קיום תחילה למקראי קודש ספר יציאת ממצרים קיבלנו
Whoops. Right, please be seated. Actually, don't be seated. Sorry, don't be seated.
It's a lie. It's a lie.
Please remain standing while you are seated. Page 51 is the Alay. We're going to ask Arthur and Ida Schwartz to honor us by opening the ark.
עלינו לשבח אדון הכל, לתת גדולה ויוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כאויבי ארצות, ולא שמד למשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, ולא עלינו בנות השמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו השמיים ממעל, ושכיני נחוסו, ושכיני נחוסו, ויאמר מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אלינו, ארץ מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככסו בתורתו, וידעת היום אשר אותה לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, השמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחתינו.
Alright, if you're not saying Mourner's Kaddish, you may be seated. And the folks who are saying Kaddish, if you could tell us for whom you are saying Kaddish. I want to lead with our good friend and cantor Solomon Vaz Diaz, who's saying Kaddish in memory of his grandmother of blessed memory, Sophia Tartas, Sophia Bat Lehman Achaya. Allah Shalom. Let her rest in peace. Anyone else? Okay, yes. Judith Lubar. Let her rest in peace. Okay. All right, we'll do the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba, amen. Yamad yivrach yimutev yamlich machutev. V'chayechon v'mechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. V'agalau v'zman karev v'yimru, amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevorach le'olam u'me'omaya. Yitvarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. Yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudesha b'rechu. V'elam min kol birchata v'shirata. Tishbachata v'nechamata. V'amiran b'yalma v'yimru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, u'yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru, amen. All right, at this time, before we do the Adon Olam, I'll call upon our wonderful president, Ms. Rita Fleming Klein. Tell us what's happening.
I got told by someone who loves me to make it short, so I will. I know you love me. I could tell anyway. Good Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos.
Wonderful, old, marvelous friends, new friends. Welcome back to Mordecai and Sarah. We're so happy you're here. To Eddie, who just came today, welcome, welcome. And to our friend Barbara, who's here. Sherry and Nate. Yeah. It's a wonderful way to begin our Shabbos weekend with all of you. It's really a joy and a lesson in loving each other. Tomorrow, come with us for our more traditional service. It begins at 9:30 in the morning. After services, there's going to be a wonderful kiddush provided by Arthur and Ida Schwartz. And after the wonderful kiddush, there's going to be Rabbi's wonderful class, which will be on.
Yes, we haven't hit upon him for some time, and he's definitely one of my favorites. He's a heavyweight Hasidic Rebbe. This is Rebbe Nachman of Bratslav. And so I hope you'll come. I got a hold of a new book, and we'll be examining.
Right, and during the week, don't miss any of the classes provided by both Rabbi Mark and Cantor Javier on Wednesdays at 4:30 and at 7 o'clock. Cantor at 4:30 has his adult Hebrew class. At 7 o'clock, current events class. On Thursday morning, Cantor Javier has his diving into the Siddur class. All of them are wonderful. We are so blessed with our clergy here who serve us in spiritually and in every loving Jewish matter that there is. We are really blessed. Saturday night, December 8th, Hanukkah Habayit at Temple Shalom. Bring your Chanukiah. Bring your Chanukiah, your menorahs from home. We are going to be lighting our Chanukiah together. It's the 7th day of Hanukkah. Bring your candles with you, please. We're going to light them together, and it's going to be absolutely spectacular. We have music. We have 2 wonderful musicians coming, a catered dinner, and we're going to be together to celebrate the Festival of Lights. All I ask you is to call the office by Wednesday for a reservation, because we need to let the caterer know how many people are coming, and we don't want to be serving you 1 meatball and a chicken wing. So, because we share. If we run short, we start sharing, but it's better to have a wonderful dinner. So please, if you can make it, it begins at 6:30 on Saturday evening, and it will be a wonderful way to, it's almost the ending of our Hanukkah celebration, but it'll be a wonderful way to be together to celebrate. Keep your eye on the bulletin. There's a wonderful event coming up in January. I have to ask you all a Friday night question. Okay? How would you feel about having a Friday night service on the beach?
On the beach?
Underwater.
We're providing you with snorkels.
In December?
No, I'd just like to know how you would feel about that.
I vote yes.
Yeah, we got a lot of yeses.
What month?
Okay. We'll see. It's been proposed. We're thinking about it. It involves getting a permit from Pompano Beach, the city of Pompano Beach, and if we can do that, we may arrange it this way. If you're unable to get to the beach, if it proves to be a difficulty, I love you, Lizzie. We may split it up between a beach service and a service in chapel. We're here to accommodate everyone for Shabbos. So I just wanted to know if there were smiles on your faces at the thought, because it makes me smile. So I wish you a sweet, beautiful Shabbos. I hope to see you for Hanukkah. Please check out your bulletins. There's something wonderful in January coming up too. Very special. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Rita. Thank you very much. Personally, I would be in favor of a beach service with perhaps an interval at the chapel as well, because thank God we're living here 10 years, and I've been to the beach twice, both times to do a conversion. The convertite was in the water, and I was standing on the beach holding the towels and smiling, wearing a white shirt and dark pants. Also, I saw a sign of Hanukkah today I wanted to share with you, as Ann Beth and I were moving through Florida traffic, and as we all know, we have such creative drivers down here. Anyway, there was a young man wearing a very visible yarmulke, and on top of the roof of his car, he had a Chanukiah. So that's Machaya mein heart. So it makes you feel good.
With pizza?
With what?
With pizza?
Come on.
From
Not the,
Yes, he was delivering a pizza with a menorah. Okay.
From Papa John.
From Papa Yochanan.
Muy bien. So we are going to finish our service on page number 54, singing together Adon Olam, entering in the mood of Hanukkah. So it's gonna be this way. Adon Olam Hashem Allah, B'terem kol Yitzir Nivra, Yesh Nasa v'Chefso kol, Beli Reshit, Beli Tachlit, Velo Ha'or Ve'am Yisra, Ve'u Eli Bechai Goali, Tzur Hevli Ve'etzara, Ve'u Nisi U'Marosli, Ve'Atkosi Be'yom Ekra, Ve'yado Achirochi, Ve'tishan Ve'ayira, Ve'imrochi Ve'liasli,
Please rise for the closing benediction. I do want to commend the Chazan for a very ruachdik service, very spirited, and we're very fortunate to have him. Okay.
Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
May the Lord bless you and keep you.
Yair Adonai panav elecha ve'yichunecha.
Lord, make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'yasem lecha. Shalom.
Lord, turn his face unto you and grant you peace. We'll say Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom. Shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom.